What's up, YouTube? I'm Derek with Lost Alien Media, and this is my review for Morbius. Yeah, this movie isn't very good. Where do I begin? The story. The story is about as formulaic and basic a superhero origin story as you can get, which isn't necessarily a bad thing if executed well. But here the execution is terrible. The first two acts move at a breakneck speed, but in a bad way. When a movie moves quickly in a good way, that's because the story is engaging and you're invested in it. Here, a lot of the scenes feel like they end way too abruptly. Like you're with Morbius in one setting and suddenly it transitions to another setting in the next scene. Or they'll skip showing certain plot points with other characters that feel integral to the story. The scenes don't get time to marinate, and the story allows very little breathing room. It's all very jarring, which can take you out of the movie. All the characters, except for maybe Morbius, are two-dimensional, disposable characters. When certain characters die, you feel zero emotional impact. You couldn't give two shits about what happens to any of them, which is the telltale sign of a bad movie. And what was Tyrese even doing in this movie? His character served absolutely no purpose to the story except to interrogate people, examine crime scenes, and spout off useless exposition. It's like the movie had to check off this box of including a cop having to do basic cop stuff. And the villain. The villain is supposed to be a sympathetic character where you understand the motivation behind his actions, but you never really do. There's really only one scene that sort of captures that, but for the rest of the movie he comes off as a bit petulant and annoying, and by the end of the movie I was ready for him to fucking die. He and Morbius are supposed to share this friendship, this connection where they'll go to the end of the earth for each other, but you never really feel that. And when they face off, it's supposed to be almost tragic. You hate the fact that they're fighting each other, and there's supposed to be this emotional weight behind it, but you never really feel that either. It just all ends up falling flat. Which brings me to the action. The one thing that could have made this movie somewhat tolerable, but also fails. I'll admit that the action sequence when Morbius first becomes a vampire is actually pretty good, but then it turns into a slow-mo CGI extravaganza with this windy wisp effect that they add to all the action. It's kind of cool at first, but when it's used throughout the whole movie, it detracts from the action. It's not that the CGI is terrible, it's that you can tell that it's CGI, and I've never been a big fan of CGI when it comes to action. I know that it's necessary for big blockbuster action scenes, but I feel that it's best when CGI is used minimally to modify the action, not for it to be like 90% of the action, like seasoning on a steak. And it also suffers from the same drawback as Venom, which that it isn't rated R. We're talking about a vampire terrorizing the streets of New York City that drinks blood. Blood! And they couldn't go the whole 9 yards with the violence and the action. I don't understand the logic behind that decision because Logan and Deadpool are regarded as two of the best, most highly successful superhero movies out there. The only redeeming quality of the movie is Jared Leto. Not that he was amazing in the movie, but you can see the potential there for him to be a really good Morbius had the movie not sucked ass. It's a shame that he's played two comic book characters in movies that have not been well received, because I personally feel that he's a very talented actor, and he usually doesn't attach himself to garbage movies. And I wish that they had gone the prosthetic route when transforming him into a vampire, even though the CGI looked pretty good when we were able to actually see him as a vampire. I liked his look as the vampire, but we rarely ever got to see him in that form. His face was either somewhat hidden or would constantly alternate between his vampire form and his human form. Overall, the movie is pretty bad. The story is unoriginal and boring, the characters are very cookie cutter, and the action is disappointing, especially when you see what they could have done had they made it rated R. I'm going to give Morbius a 4 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'd really, really appreciate it. Derek out.